Good morning, everyone. We're going to bring this meeting into session and hope everybody had a wonderful summer. And welcome to meeting 13 of the Parks and Environment Committee, and welcome to members of the committee, to other members of public and council in attendance today, and the members of public. For those in the room with us, the screen at the back of the room provides real-time updates concerning where we're at on the agenda and what's coming up next. And you can follow the agenda and debate on your computer, tablet, or smartphone at www.toronto.ca/council. And also, we would like to acknowledge that we are meeting today on the traditional territory of the Mississaugas of New Credit First Nation, the Haudenosaunee, the Huron-Wendat, and home to many diverse Indigenous people. And so just okay, so first we'll start with the declarations of interest on the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
Chair, if I could, I'm going to, out of an abundance of caution, because I can't find the exact boundaries of Yellow Creek Vale of Avoca Master Plan. My family owns, my mother owns a property on Avoca, which is directly adjacent it. So I'm going to declare a conflict, potential conflict there, an interest. Yep. Normally it's you that.
Great. And then confirmation of minutes, June 16, 2016. Moved by Councillor Doucette. All those in favor? Opposed, and that carries. And so today we have speakers and presentations. We first up have a presentation from the Toronto Youth Environmental Council, Toronto's Climate Report Card. And so we'll be coming back around to that. And then next up is Safety and Roading Park. Yeah, so Councillor Ajamari is holding that one. And the annual report, energy consumption and greenhouse gas emissions in city facilities. Yep, held by Councillor Layton. And number 4, PE 13.4, status of the community energy plan for Mount Dennis area and the Eglinton Crosstown LRT. Councillor Ajamari will be holding that one.
And Madam Speaker,
yes,
there will be a deputant on that,
okay,
a resident that's going to come and speak on that one.
Okay, so we'll make sure that they speak with the clerks on that one. And number 5, we do have a speaker on 13.5, health benefits of a low carbon future. And also on PE 13.6, Yellow Creek Vale of Avoca Master Plan. We have speakers on that as well. Okay. So what we'll do is we'll start with PE 13.1, which is the presentation from Toronto Youth Environmental Council, Toronto's Climate Report Card. And I think all of them are here today. And what we're going to do is just try to extend your presentation time to 10 minutes. And that's at the will of the committee. If everybody's in favor, I think so. So if you want to come up, you can just sit at the front here. Thank you so much for coming. No problem. If you haven't had a chance to speak to a committee before, then afterward you'll have the opportunity for members of the committee to ask you questions after you read your report. Thank you.
So good morning, honourable members of Toronto City Council and the Parks and Environment Committee. I'm Alice Chang, co-president of the Toronto Youth Environmental Council for this year. And before I begin, I just wanted to thank you for this opportunity and your willingness to listen and collaborate with us as we address a cause that my peers and I are truly passionate about. So today you'll hear from me and 2 other members of the Toronto Youth Environmental Council who have decided to spearhead the I Matter Now Toronto, a campaign to empower youth to stand up and demand immediate action in our cities. So we've been collecting petitions, analyzing the report card, which I have here with me today. and getting our voices heard as we organize marches, gather in rallies, and deliver speeches such as this one. Ultimately, we just strive to reach a climate inheritance resolution to commit to creating a local climate action plan that will reduce emissions enough to ensure a livable planet for our generation. Now, before Ajantha shares a little insight on what we do, I'd just like to give you a sense of the iMatter organization who we've partnered with for this project. So it is, they're a youth-driven climate change organization founded by a 13-year-old back in 2007 in the US. So basically what it is teams of like-minded, eco-conscious youth are dispersed all over cities across the US, dedicated to holding their communities accountable in regards to diverting from fossil fuels and amplifying youth voices. But we're proud to say that we're the first Canadian city joining in on this very important movement.
All right, my name is Ajantha Nadesalingam. I'm a 12th grader, and I'm an environmentally enthusiastic individual in general. So what I'll be doing is introducing TIAC, which is long for the Toronto Youth Environmental Council. It's a completely youth-run, nonprofit organization that strives to promote environmental sustainability by engaging youth. So we do this in a number of different ways, and one of them would be to target environmental issues at its roots, which is education. So we've done, in the past year, for example, we run bi-monthly environmental ambassadors meetings, as well as conferences and workshops. And we also run environmentally inclined events. So, for example, we've had concerts as well as an art show, and all of the proceeds from that event ends up going to an environmental cause. We've also worked with organizations such as Evergreen Brickworks, TDSB Eco Schools, and we're working on other initiatives right now.
So let's address what's exactly behind the report card. So working with the largest contributors to greenhouse gas emissions, iMatter relies on publicly available data that pertains to areas cities can impact and combines that with an A to F grading system, evaluating cities' abilities to take action or inaction to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. Grades are based on real data, the presence of programs that include appropriate goals and concrete actions. The report card has already been supported by multiple leaders in the climate science community, as well as multiple organizations, many of which serve as advisors to iMatter.
And moving on to the further contents of the report card, I'd like to address where Toronto is at currently. As you may know, our city's total overall grade, is at a C, derived from combining each of the 5 sections of the report card into an overall grade. So although weightings are based on the US averages for each area's impact on a typical community's greenhouse gas footprint, they can definitely be applicable for Toronto to some extent as well. So let's start with the first and most important section of the report card, which is the Zero Emissions Climate Action Plan. This has a weighting of 50%, and right now we're graded at a C-. Now, it's great that our city is aiming for an 80% reduction in emissions by 2050, but note that with this goal, the annual emissions reduction is less than 6%. And today we urge you to raise our grade, and we demand that the city creates and follows through with a plan to achieve net zero emissions by 2040, or decrease emissions by 60% by 2025. Now, Toronto is the largest city in Canada and is integral to our health and well-being of our planet, that we be leaders in the transition to a green economy and society.
The next section, which weighs 20%, is renewable energy. Toronto receives 29% of its energy from renewable sources, while nationally in 2014, Canada has received 94.3% of its energy from renewable sources. Unfortunately, this means that we are well below the national average by 30%, and it means that we can only receive a mark of D- on this section. To surpass our currently very low grade, we demand that the amount of renewable energy used in Toronto increase by 2% per year, and that we reach 100% dependence on renewable sources by 2050.
So now I'm going to talk a little bit about waste. So in waste, we've achieved a score of A-, which you might note is comparatively better than the other sections. What this might mean is that right now, waste might not be a priority for us, but it's important to note that we still do have a long way to go, and we can do a lot of things to improve where we're at. For example, we could make coffee cups recyclable within the city, as well as encouraging residents to properly use the green bins that they're provided.
Following the waste section is the carbon removal section, where Toronto has received a grade of B. It is wonderful that our city is committed to removing carbon from the atmosphere with a program that contributes to this action. However, there is still much room for improvement. Our grade can be further raised by a third of a level if we include carbon storage capacity into the program's metrics. Our grade was actually initially at a C, but has increased by a whole level when we met program metrics this past recent year.
Now, the final section of this report card is youth involvement. This is a section I feel strongly towards because, considering youth comprise a large portion of the city's population, it would just make sense for them to be included in the discussion as well, especially when it's in regards to climate action, such an important issue. And this is our future we're talking about, so it's essential we do take active part in the decision-making that occurs. So youth involvement in advising on or helping to develop climate change-related policies or plans, I feel, is extremely important. As after all, we are going to be the ones who are inheriting this city, this planet. And sadly, we're going to be the ones also most impacted by climate change. So currently, Toronto does not have any formal youth involvement, so we don't get any points for this section. However, if the city did include youth involvement, Toronto's total grade will be raised by at least half a level. So we highly urge you, following today's meeting, to sort of reflect and think about possible ways for youth to become more involved in this regard. And I guess to conclude, we're ultimately here today just to raise awareness and bring this issue to your attention. We're not here today to, draft a plan or, sign a contract immediately, but we do really want to make sure that we keep future dialogues open, like I said, with continuous youth involvement, so that going forward in the future, we definitely can collaborate more, whether it be with local organizations such as ours or educational sectors such as the TDSB Eco Schools group. But I feel like it's very important that youth have a say at the table as well, and we get our voices heard. And that's truly what the I Matter organization campaign stands for. So thank you so much for this opportunity. Thank you so much for your time. And I really do hope these words have made a difference in whatever plans you may have for the future.
Great, wonderful. Thank you so much for your presentation. And so what we'll do is we'll have questions from the committee, and then they'll ask you questions, okay? Great report. Thank you so much. Councillor Sept.
Thank you very much for coming today. I did visit your website. My first question is, do you have any guys involved? I see this as a very lady, woman-orientated committee, which I appreciate, but we do need to get some of the guys involved as well.
Yeah, I'll just address that question. Our website hasn't been updated to reflect the recent changes.
Okay.
So, because in late August, we actually recruited new members for our next year's executive team, and we're happy to say that there has been a great increase in the gender diversity. So we have, I think 3 males on our team. So, yeah, out of a team of I think 7-ish.
Okay. Have you been following the program we're doing in the city called Transform TO? Have you come to any of our community meetings? Transform TO is a subcommittee of this committee where we've been going out across the city for nearly a year, I think it is now, encouraging all age groups, all people to come and talk to us about what the city can do to improve on climate change and where we're going in the next 20, 30 years. I know Councillor Perks and I held our own meeting as well on top of these 6, so we do encourage you to go to the Transform TO website. You can give your input and get involved that way. So if you haven't been involved, I ask that that's a good place for you. Also, are you following what Toronto Atmospheric Fund does? That's, we call it TAF. Toronto Atmospheric Fund is connected to the city, and they give grants and loans out to organizations who are looking to study and to reduce greenhouse emissions. I know we have a suggestion coming forward now, looking at, as you probably know, freight trucks are one of our highest producers of GHGs, yes. So if you haven't looked at the TAF website, there's another good place for you to look at what the city's doing. Which part of the city are you from? Which area are you living right now?
Scarborough.
Scarborough, okay.
I think we're all from different places. I'm
That's
from
good.
North York.
I live near Yonge and St. Clair.
Okay. So you're able to reach the youth in your neighborhoods?
Yes.
Great. You're on your waste, you gave us an A-, which is good, but obviously we'd all like an A+ here. Are you aware that we're now going, really concentrated for the last few years, going into multi-residential units? High-rise buildings which may have one garbage chute, they're trying to work out how they can separate their waste. Are you aware of that, and did you include that in your A- to us?
I think, I don't think we're personally the ones who wrote this report card all by ourselves. We did it with the help of some other past members and people who have worked on it from there. So things may have changed a little bit since then.
Right.
But yeah, I do, I know of a lot of campaigns such as Live Green Toronto's and their condo apartment waste management. So
Yeah.
I think it's great what Toronto is doing with trying to incorporate green bins.
Excellent. And if you have anyone in my neighborhood, I'm in the High Park area. I have two brilliant local groups, one called Green 13 and one called Project Neutral, who are doing what you're wanting to do, and they would make great partners for you if you've got youth in those neighborhoods, and I can always give you contact information. My last question is, are you working with our youth council? We have youth cabinets. We have youth cabinet who look at how the city's run, and that would be a good partner as well because they've already got youth engaged. You may be able to beg, borrow, steal some of their youth, share youth, whichever way you go. But again, there's another organization who's been around a long time who would be a great partner for you. So I know it's not a question, but I just want to thank you for what you're doing. I think this is fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you. And any other councillors ask questions? No? Okay, see none. Then to speak. And Councillor Layton.
I'll speak. Thank you very much for your presentation today. I think there are several of us that have come out of the environmental movement and done the work that you guys are doing at such an early age, well into our 30s and even some into our 40s, for national and local environmental organizations. And so there is a career in this that you can choose and a path that you can take that is really exciting. At one point in time, I made a decision after graduate school whether or not to pursue fighting for a cleaner environment or working for a consultant to help get projects implemented that would in fact harm the environment. I chose the former and have not looked back, although it's probably reflective in my paycheck for many years as an environmental activist. I do think that through our Transform TO, we can probably do better in how we involve our youth. I think there are some complications with how how this particular metric for measuring how our city is doing is problematic, just because different jurisdictions, because it's from the U.S., don't always translate very well. Partly because our electricity mix we don't often get a say over as a municipality. But it's I think a good way to compare how people are doing, because just because we're not performing well as a city doesn't necessarily reflect that our level of government isn't doing the work, but in fact other levels of government that are contributing to how we live our lives on a daily basis perhaps also aren't holding up their end of the bargain. We do have a
Councillor Layton, sorry, do you have a motion?
I do, sorry. That the item be forwarded to the Parks and Environment Committee on Climate Change, Mitigation and Adaptation, including consideration of a zero emissions climate action plan and youth involvement in Transformation TO. I want to make sure we capture those two pieces of your of the report card and of your presentation within what the subcommittee is looking at. And hopefully what comes at the end of that is we'll join the likes of other municipalities around the world that are taking the zero emissions approach. And through developing that plan, I think that it's clear youth need to be very well engaged on this. one of the places that we seem to be doing well around waste is a direct result of youth engagement 30 years ago, when I was a younger youth, and we used youth to educate their parents on recycling. And that was a really effective way of doing it, because having hundreds of thousands, 1 million young people policing their parents about where they put their waste got an enormous shift and got us from 0% recycling into, where are we at, like 55 now or something like that. We still got a ways to go, but it is going to be youth that help get us there, and hopefully youth can help be part of making that plan. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Any others to speak? Yep, Councillor Cressy.
Sure, just a couple words. First of all, thank you guys for coming out and taking the time. We do appreciate it. I think you'll find there's a lot of receptive voices sitting around this table when it comes to, I think the recognition we all have that climate change is the defining issue of our time. But that it's your generation that's going to have to deal with the consequences for our generation's actions. That's the unfortunate reality of climate change, is that you're going to have to deal with the consequences of all our failings. I'm saying all our failings. I'm not that much older than you, so I'm there. The first time I ever came, as youth, as environmental activists, a number of us came out of that sector. The first time I was in this committee room was sitting where you were, with a 6-foot-tall bottled water tower, advocating for bottled water to be phased out of municipal facilities. I was an environmental activist myself. And, I have to tell you, my advice for the environmental sector and young people in the environmental sector is to push hard, to hold us to account. The old feminist line, give them hell and make them howl, and to do just that. Because if you don't hold us to account, nobody will. And don't let us off the hook. Don't let us just talk about change. Force us to actually invest in it and make it happen for that just transition. And thanks for coming out, you guys.
Great. Any other councillors to speak? No, seeing none. Thank you so much. I'll just say thank you so much for coming, and it took a bit of time to get you on the agenda, but happy that you're here today and presenting your report. It's great, great work, and hope you continue that. And I'll be supporting Councillor Layton's motion, and so we'll put that up on the screen. And all those in favor? Opposed, and that carries. So that will be going over to the subcommittee, to this committee. And so you'll, I'm sure, be invited to participate in that subcommittee as well. Okay, thank you so much for today.
My pleasure.
And then moving on to PE 13.2, Councillor Ajamari, this is Safety and Roading Park. So maybe we should go to questions of staff if we go to that one too. Yep, so Councillor Doucette.
Thank you very much. Questions? So the report is sort of saying that you're going to be continuing where you were going with the lighting, which I appreciate. I think we do need lighting. But also some of these incidents happen during the daytime, which lighting won't have any effect on. I understand, I'm getting to my question. I understand video, well, it's there, but it doesn't always work. I want to follow up on your comment about a dog off-leash area. Dog off-leash areas bring a lot of people to a park at strange hours of the day and the early evening. And they don't just bring people who walk through a park, they bring people who hang around with their dogs. So could we really look at that? Because I think that would bring a lot more activity into your park. I know in one of my parks, when we brought one in, okay, it may be difficult sometimes, it did move some of the people on who we didn't want in our park. So will you really seriously look at a dog off-leash area?
Yes, Councillor, we are, and we're taking a careful look at the area and what's permitted there and whether or not it floods and what the flooding is caused by, and we think it's basically storm sewer inlets that come in the north end of the park and end up going out the south end of the park. Mm-hmm. So that has to be looked at, but to your point, yes, and we can put that in the 2017 capital budget submission if possible. The other thing I know which brings kids to the park is something like a skateboard park.
You have a community center here. Is there any area, any need, or any request in the community for a skateboard park? We have very few in our communities. And again, it doesn't just bring the teenagers, it brings the 20, 30, 40, 50-year-olds as well. Again, I'm trying to think of more activities you can have in the park where people will come all different times of the day and the early evening to make it more of a vibrant park so people will feel safer walking through it. So had you thought about something like a skateboard park?
Through the chair, we're actually working on a skateboard strategy right now around where and further sort of skateboard installations should be. To be honest, we haven't thought about this park as one of the priorities just because of the ravine structure in it. It's a little bit isolated for that kind of activity. But as Mr. Ubbins can note, there are a number of different types of activities that we're planning to try and bring into this park to engage citizens more and spending more time in the park to make it a busier place.
Excellent. So I know the motion is just to receive this report, which always concerns me when we receive something for information. I really want this to be an active, moving forward report. So I look forward to hear of all your activities which will go into this, will go into the park, which will benefit the community and in the long run also make it a lot safer. So
through the chair, I would just comment that there's a number of activities noted in the report that we are accommodating within our existing operating budget around going in and making some changes for the better in the immediate future. Some of the items, as noted in the report, are future capital budget items that will need to be incorporated into future budgets. But we certainly have a plan to follow through on all of those items and an eye to ensuring that the safety considerations and worries about this park move in the right direction.
So one last thing, as you're aware, adult exercise equipment, I know you've got it in the report. When it came into my ward, holy mackerel, we could have done one 4 times the size. I think that's another activity which is also good, and I hope that, I see that in your report, and I hope that is an active, bring again more eyes and ears. Thank you very much.
Great, thank you. And Councillor Ajamari, to question? No questions? No further questions from the committee? Okay, then to speak.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to thank the staff of all of our agencies, divisions, and the nonprofits who took part in the study of Roding Park and how to assist with improving the safety and security and overall improvements that are destined for the park. The staff came out on numerous occasions. People were on site all the time through inclement weather and extremely sunny weather. And they took into account a lot of serious options that we want to consider. Community was brought into the process. Police 31 Division were great in partnering. MetTrack, we had a women's walk, which you may have read about in the local media. Safety audits, more than one. The engagement led to officers on bicycles now in the park. We forged strong relationships with the local schools. The school principals have come out, actually, and that's, hasn't been done so often before. Lighting has been improved both at the community center and within the park itself. Sightlines have been improved, brush has been cut back, but that has to be kept on an annual basis. So all of this has already been done, and I thank staff. We look forward now to future budgets and future funding. We've applied for POL funding, Partnership Opportunities Legacies, and I think we have a good shot at it. We want to animate the park, and we think that, as Councillor Doucette has said, a dog park, which is of increased significance across North York right now. People want the opportunity to meet with neighbors, and that is a great way to do so, to offer this dogs off leash opportunity, and we want that. I understand that with the TRCA we have some serious infrastructure needs in the area because Roding Park is in such an incline, and it's so deep that we can't even put in a child's water play area, for example, which is one of the things that I had wanted to do from many years ago. So we look forward to a commitment to animation for this park. I too, as Councillor Doucette said, I'm uncomfortable with moving to receive, but I understand that that's what we have to do today. And as a package, I'm very supportive of what staff has done. All of the staff, and Lindsay Peterson, who works directly with my office, is back here, have been great partners with the community, and I'd like to thank them. And we look forward to the next step. And I understand the budgets are tight, but when we have an opportunity where all facets of the community come together and support this one project, it's lovely. I have to say that the women who were assaulted have gone through some very difficult times. One of them is the local school teacher at the closest school. She hasn't been able to go back to work because of the extent of her injuries. So we really need help to bring this park back to the community. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, Councillor Ajamari. Are there any other councillors to speak? Councillor Cressy?
Well, just a few words, because I know this came back from when we first talked about it in the spring. And first of all, I want to commend the local councillor for her rather tireless efforts on this file, both to improve the safety of her local community, but also in the process to further animate the park, to make the neighborhood more livable, and to do both. And if there's nothing else, Councillor Ajamari is relentless and knows how to get it done, and this is an example of that. So I want to commend the councillor. And for our staff, it's worth thanking the staff from Parks, Forestry and Recreation, as Councillor Ajamari did, for both the comprehensive approach and package that they've taken here, but also the care in which they've done it. This has been a challenging time for the local community, and they've come in, and while there have been some quick wins and quick steps done, I know, around some lighting work and some of the sight lines with the forestry coming up to clean up the edges, we know more needs to be done on both of those fronts, and that the animation, whether it's the playground or the dogs off leash area, are critical, and I want to thank our staff for their commitment to work to secure that amidst a tough moment here around funding, but I know that they're working closely with Ajamari, and as I said, Councillor Ajamari knows how to get it done. So I'm confident that we will. And so I'm happy to support the local councillor on this.
Great. Thank you so much. Any other councillors to speak? Nope, seeing none. So I'll just reiterate that as well. Councillor Ajamari, great effort, and you know, you deserve so much to be said for all the work that you've done on this, and also with staff. And it's so great to see that your staff and yourself are working with staff and coming up with these solutions, and hopefully through this, there will be an amazing dog park. I know they work so well in my ward as well. I'm such a huge advocate of that. And also for the fitness equipment, works well in my ward as well. So animating it and bringing in more features, and thanks so much to staff for doing that. So this is a motion to receive, so I believe that Councillor Ajamari will be moving that. And all those in favor? Opposed? And that carries. And so we're going to be moving on to the next one, which was held by Councillor Layton, which is PE 13.3, Annual Report, Energy Consumption and Greenhouse Gas Emissions in the City Facilities. This is also a motion to receive, but there's questions of staff.
Thank you very much. My question is just around the top energy consumers by operation type. If you add sewage treatment, and water pumping, it seems like Lou and Toronto Water is sucking up all the juice. What are they doing to help reduce their What are they doing to help reduce their energy consumption? Do we have a plan in place to help reduce their energy consumption?
Toronto Water is, as I understand it, currently developing energy conservation plan. I know they've retained consultants to work both on conservation and renewable energy development, but we're not directly involved in the preparation of that, so I can't speak as to its status, Councillor.
So looking at the top 5, lose the top 3 administrative offices. What are we doing with respect to reducing energy consumption in our administrative offices?
Councillor, a couple of years ago, you'll recall that we did replace the windows here at City Hall. We're now just in the beginning stages of a major LED lighting retrofit for City Hall, Metro Hall, Scarborough Civic Center, and some of the other administrative buildings.
Oh, and there's a systematic approach to this. We've got our inventory of buildings, we've got assessments happening in all of them, or at least a plan to have assessments done in all of them.
That's correct, yes. Council approved the Energy Conservation Demand Management Plan about 2 years ago, I believe, which spelled out some of the individual buildings with major consumption and some of the high-level plans for how we're going to address those.
And how are we funding this work?
There is a program, again, that Council has approved, known as the Recoverable Debt Program, so we...
You said the words I wanted to hear, that's perfect. Street lighting. We're working with Toronto Hydro, it's number 5. Like, it's understandable that it would consume some electricity in the city, but what are we doing to reduce that number?
We've been working for the last year and a half anyway with Toronto Hydro and Transportation Services on how we can approach that. And you know, we know quite a bit about the opportunity in terms of magnitude. We know that there are kilowatt-hour savings associated with conversion to LED street lighting, but where we are getting hung up is in the conversion of the kilowatt-hour savings to dollar savings. Because again, if the city investment, if that's in fact who does the investment, is recoverable. So we need to do a business case that shows what the dollar savings are in order to get to the capital. And it's the creation of that business case, the calculation of the energy savings in dollar terms, that's causing us some grief.
So can you explain that a little bit more? Why is it that we don't have a better grasp about when in administrative buildings we can make a pretty easy assessment of the value, but we can't for...
Yeah, part of the answer has to do with electricity rate setting. And the way electricity rates are set and approved by the Ontario Energy Board is that they're done by rate classes. So in commercial buildings, there are a large number of commercial buildings within Toronto that are included in that rate class. So any cost associated with the delivery and the administration to that category are spread over hundreds of clients. In Toronto, there is one client of street lighting services, and that's the city. So any of those administration costs have to be borne by just one client, which is us. So the issue is that if we reduce our kilowatt-hour consumption and corresponding rates charges, which are based on kilowatt-hour usage, go down, then there will be a corresponding increase in some other element to recover those charges from the utility.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Layton. And Councillor Doucette.
Very quick question. When do you expect, on page 2, you say that Toronto Zoo, Exhibition Place, vacant buildings are not included in this report. When do you expect that they will be?
If we're directed to include them, we will seek the relevant information for those organizations, Councillor, and include them. You should understand, Councillor, this report flows from our legislative requirement to report annually to the province. There are only certain building types that are specified to be included, and so not all of the city's operations are captured in this report. However, we could, in effect, decouple our reporting to council from our regulatory requirement. We could very well report out on an annual basis on all city operations, including all city agencies and corporations, if we were so directed.
So just because they're not reporting here, it doesn't mean that they're not engaged in the program to reduce energy efficiency. Is that right?
That's correct, Councillor.
Yeah. Several years ago, I put a motion forward, and I know people always think it's a strange motion, about computer monitors. How many staff does the city have? How many people does the city hire, roughly? Anyone know?
I don't have the answer to that question, Councillor.
What I'm trying to get at is how many computers and how many monitors are used every day by city staff? My motion was that city staff should turn off the monitor when they leave their offices in the evening for weekends. I know it sounds minor, but I did that because I heard from TDSB that one year they saved $1 million in electrical costs because they turned the monitors off. So you're not just saving the money, you're saving electricity. So I walk past councillors' offices when I go home, and I'll tell you, my staff turn theirs off every night, and I see monitors blaring. It's something small, but it might be an extra thing, part of the puzzle, which we should be pushing. So does anyone know where that motion actually went? Did we ever follow up with heads of department? Did we ever actually take that one little jigsaw puzzle and, try and do that? It's a very simple, low-hanging fruit one.
Through the chair, we will look at that, Councillor Doucette, and we'll talk to the IT department too at the same time.
Because I know the concern was if you turn the monitor off, I'm not turning the computer off, just the monitor.
Understood.
I know you have to have a computer for downloads, uploads, and whatever computers do, so it's just the monitor I'm looking at.
We'll
computer-wise.
we'll revisit that for you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Great, thank you. And others to question? Seeing none, then to speak. Councillor Layton.
Thank you very much. I have a motion, if the clerks could put it up, that the Director of Energy and Environment and Energy, in consultation with the General Manager of Toronto Water, review options for reducing energy consumption in sewage waste treatment facilities, water treatment facilities, and water pumping facilities, including the possible energy savings resulting from commercial and residential water conservation initiatives, and report back to the Parks and Environment Committee. I understand some of this work is already being done, but I think the expertise of our the expertise and ingenuity of our Energy and Environment Committee might help the engineers down at Toronto Water come up with some new ideas for how we could reduce this. We've done well in the City of Toronto with water conservation over the years, and has helped us meet goals of not expanding facilities. But we can do better. We're still per capita well higher than municipalities in Europe, and I think we can, and even more ways to go with municipalities in places like Australia. So I think that there would benefit from having a little bit more of the environment and energy talking to water on this issue. So thank you very much.
Thank you. And Councillor Perks.
Thank you. I just want to speak in support of Councillor Layton's motion and maybe take the thinking a little further. While it's true that over the previous decade, Toronto Water made an awfully big investment in more efficient pumps, more efficient electrical devices within their operation, where we have stopped our effort is in water conservation and efficiency itself. The last time I looked, people in the United Kingdom consume 1/6 the amount of water per capita as Torontonians, 1/6. And frankly, the best energy saving is to not use the water in the first place. You don't have to pump it up the hill, and you don't have to treat it on the way in, you don't have to treat it on the way out. We had some incentive programs around low-flow toilets, which we no longer do. We've given up entirely on finding mechanisms to bring Torontonians' water consumption in line with what you would see in a European country. And as a result, we're spending a great deal of money building bigger and bigger and bigger tanks and tunnels and pumping more and more water up the hill and then back out. So it's when staff are having the conversation with Toronto Water, I encourage you, don't just look at the efficiency, look at actual conservation measures.
Thank you very much. And Councillor Doucette.
Just one very quick thing which came to mind. The other thing we used to do as a city was in our environment days, people could buy rain barrels. We don't do that anymore. So we had the downspout disconnect program. And where does that water go? A lot of the times in my ward now, it just runs down a driveway and into the storm sewer. And if you get a cold weather, you have an ice rink going down a driveway. I think the city should go back and look at rain barrels. Seriously, I have 3. And this summer, I used every drop of water which came out of that sky, which wasn't very much except the last night or the night before, where all 3 of my rain barrels filled and overflowed. That means I don't use my hose pipe. That means I was able to water my trees, water my vegetables, have great vegetables, but using rainwater. That is an efficiency I think we should go back to. When I have asked to have a community organization come and offer as a fundraiser for residents to buy rain barrels, I can't do that because I have to go out to tender to 3 different groups to bring rain barrels in, and yet I'm trying to help my community group raise money. I'm trying to help my residents who want rain barrels. I think we need to relook at that. Not everyone wants to go to one of the big stores and buy a rain barrel. It's a great place to promote them. Environment Day is a place we should be promoting them, and I'd like the city to cut that red tape, which I have experienced for the last 5 years, and I've been very good. I haven't broken the rules. So I seriously want the city to look at offering rain barrels or allowing groups to come to Environment Day and promote rain barrels. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ajmeri. Or Councillor Doucette, any others to speak? No, seeing none. Okay, so it's Councillor Layton's motion on the screen, and all those in favor? Opposed, and that carries. And moving on to PE 13.4, I know we have another motion here from Councillor Nunziata. It was held by Councillor Ajmeri, but we do have a speaker here today, Rick Ciccarelli. I hope I'm pronouncing, I should know how to pronounce your last name.
Rick is good.
Okay.
I'll answer to most things.
Thank you so much for coming, and you have 5 minutes to speak.
Thank you for having me. I'm here on behalf of the Toronto Community Benefits Network and a coalition of local communities, including Mount Dennis Community Association, on which I'm an executive member, the 12 Residents Alliance for Youth Initiative. In that coalition, we've also had support of Blue Green Canada for a number of years, TRCA, and the Toronto Eco Neighbourhoods Initiative. Plus, there's other members that we're working with through the city's Neighbourhood Action Partnership. The group most recently has been responding to the proposal for a gas power plant on the Kodak lands as part of the maintenance and storage facility being developed by Metrolinx. This showed up after a number of years of planning last November, when the contractor, the general contractor, Crosslinks Transit Solutions, showcased its plan for what the site would look like. It was not expected. We'd been advocating for years that this site be redeveloped and connect the community into the green economy. We've been trying to set the conditions for that, worked with the community around those kind of issues, and as a result of that community community process, the Toronto Community Benefits Network got established, and are now working across Toronto with a number of different communities on workforce development issues, on environment and neighborhood improvement issues. So this is kind of, has been the center point for our struggle to move this community forward, to respond in a way that is reflective of sustainable community development. I'm here to congratulate the city with this report. It's groundbreaking. The fact that you are looking at the spectrum of how a local plan for climate change that involves urban growth, that involves energy, that involves economic benefit, but from a local perspective. That's huge. And it's something that, as I say, we've been trying to push for years. Councillor Nunziata's motion is reflective of the support and the initiative that she's been taking in this community, and making sure that these issues are brought forward with political support. I urge you to support this recommendation that's in front of you. I urge you to communicate to the province. We're looking to try and generate community resources so that it's not just the city that's investing in this plan, but that Trillium, that other foundations, are starting to animate the community so that we're able to see things not just planned, but acted on. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Rick. And questions of the Deputant? No, seeing none. Thank you so much for presenting. And so just questions to staff and outside Councillor Tamari. No questions? Okay, so to speak.
Okay, thank you. I have a motion, well, Councillor Layton will move that on my behalf. And members of council have received my item. Okay. So I want to thank Rick Ciccarelli for being here and making a deputation. As he mentioned, the Mount Dennis Community Association and we've been working with the city and with Metrolinx on the Kodak land. As you know, the Kodak land, it will be the maintenance facility for Metrolinx. And that was an issue that my community was not happy with and this happened a few years ago. But we wanted, and we worked with Metrolinx, and we worked actually with the city planning and with the community, and we were able to get through the MOU is a mixed use as well. So a portion of that site would be mixed use, which we were very successful in that, and Rick Ciccarelli was involved in that. But then just recently, and it appeared, and an item went through the executive committee just recently, about a year ago, Metrolinx announced that they were going to put this gas plant at the site, a 4-story, and for the line, for the Eglinton line. And of course, residents in my community. And this site, actually, the Kodak land, is really not in my ward. Technically, it's in Councillor DeGeorge's ward. But my residents are just west of the tracks, so it affects my residents more than it does Councillor DeGeorge's ward, so that's why I'm speaking on the item. So we objected to that, and we had a number of meetings with Metrolinx. And then there was a meeting that we had in July of 2016 where the MPP attended as well, and she was very supportive. And so what Metrolinx did is that they pulled their site plan from the city about 3 months ago, and that they were not going to build this gas plant. So and their recommendation is that they were going to work with Toronto Hydro to come up with a new plan. So that's where it is now as far as the gas plant. So this is where it all started. And so now we got the report here, 13.4, and staff were involved in it as well, and through all those consultation meetings. And so the draft plan that you have before you will take it one step further with the support of staff. And also, the province is committing to funding for programs and projects in 2017 to reduce emissions in Ontario. So with the support of the province, we'll be able to really make an impact and see the community energy plan implemented. So that's why my motion is here before us, and the staff, I met with staff, they're very supportive of the recommendation, and we contacted our MPP, our local MPP, to be supportive as well. So I urge the members of this committee to support the motion that Councillor Layton will move on my behalf, and thank you to the committee.
Thank you, Councillor Nunziata. And so nobody else to speak, so Councillor Layton.
Yes, thank you very much. I'm happy to move on behalf of the motion that's been on the screen for quite some time to develop a net zero community energy plan for the Mount Dennis neighborhood. I'd like to commend the local councillor for her work on this and for the community for speaking out so vehemently. Hopefully what it will result in is to start demonstrating that we are able to create these net zero communities. We just need to invest in them in order to have that as an outcome.
Thank you. And so on the motion then, see that? All those in favor? Opposed, and that carries. Thanks so much. And on the next item, we have a speaker today. It's PE 13.5, Health Benefits of a Low Carbon Future. and it's with the Toronto Environment Alliance, Dusha Srithran. Hi, Dusha, how are you?
Good, thanks. How are you?
Great. So as you know, you have 5 minutes to speak, and members of the committee may ask you questions. Thank you.
Good morning to all of you. Thank you for having me. My name is Dusha Sridharan, and I work with the Toronto Environmental Alliance as a climate change campaigner. T has over 50,000 supporters in each and every ward across the city. At T, we're very aware that climate change isn't just an environmental issue. It's important for our health, equity, and prosperity as a city. During the last heat wave, we polled our supporters and asked them what their greatest health-related concern was. Hot temperatures affecting people's health was their top concern, followed by the impacts drought may cause on local food as well as green infrastructure. The Board of Health report on health benefits of a low-carbon future comes at a perfect time as we've been experiencing record-breaking high temperatures. This year, Toronto Public Health has declared 14 heat warnings and 8 extended heat warnings. The extreme heat and drought are a sure sign of the present impacts of climate change. As this report highlights, the extreme heat directly impacts the health and well-being of Toronto residents. My aunt is just one example of someone who's being affected by the extreme heat. My aunt Shanti is 67 years old, lives in an apartment tower close to Markham and Eglinton in the East End. She has no air conditioning in her building and has had to keep her balcony door open for most of the summer and keep her fan on. As someone who lives with a heart condition, she's at greater risk from the high heat than most other people. This always means that our family is checking in on her to make sure she's okay during hot days. Her story is similar to so many other people across the city. More than 50% of Toronto residents live in high-rises, and many of them lack air conditioning. This map, which was prepared by this map was prepared by the city in 2011, and it shows heat vulnerability across the city. And what you'll see is the areas that are red usually correlate as well with where high concentrations of apartment towers are across the city. And so this is something that's a huge concern for people who are vulnerable. The city has already taken some measures to help protect people during the heat. Toronto Public Health recently announced that cooling centers will be open more often during heat waves. This committee has also helped make sure that public pools stay open later during hot days and that we protect the green spaces we really need. With extreme heat becoming more frequent with climate change, we will need to invest more in protecting vulnerable people in our communities. Currently, the city only operates 7 cooling centers across the whole city. And this means that we need to be looking and investing, making cooling spaces more accessible. And it also becomes a question of, especially for people who have mobility issues, how do we get landlords to offer cooling centers within their buildings? Toronto Public Health has set up a technical advisory group on extreme heat in multi-unit residential buildings. This work is crucial, and we look forward to seeing their recommendations on reducing the health risks for high-rise populations. We hope to see strategies emerge that will help cool buildings while using clean sources of energy or, using very little energy when needed. As the city is also developing its climate change plan through Transform TO, this work is timely. The advisory group's work can also help inform the actions of Transform TO. Getting to a low carbon future means that we need to engage all Torontonians, not just the technical experts or the climate change advocates. So as the youth cabinet mentioned today, we want to make sure that there's a variety of people, youth, people from different multicultural backgrounds, and people with different income backgrounds as well represented in these conversations. Thanks to a grant from TAF, T's been working on looking at how to bring new voices to the table through these conversations on climate change. As part of this work, T is organizing an event this October to bring together community leaders to share ideas on how to best engage new voices on climate change issues. This work will help us develop recommendations to Transform TO about how to engage people in their long-term climate action plan. We hope to develop these ideas and share them with the staff, and we look forward to keeping this committee up to date on that work. So thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you so much. And we have questions. Councillor Parks.
Thank you, Dusha. I appreciate the deputation. If I understood you correctly, when you're saying that the cooling centers is inadequate, Do you think we ought to have cooling either available in all units or at least in all buildings? Should that be our goal?
There's a few different processes that are looking at this. So the technical advisory group is looking at this right now about how to best approach this. They're looking at setting possibly a maximum indoor temperature, looking at how you can offer indoor cooling spaces or even outdoor green spaces that could be cooling places within buildings. But I think the reality is with 7 cooling centers, if you think across the city, how do you get to places like that, right? So we talk about, I mean, this is not new news. We talk about transit woes and people having different mobility issues. You want to make sure, especially within apartment towers and stuff that have multi-residential units, people have a space within there that they can escape. And it's not something that can wait. If you look at the temperatures this summer, for anyone who hasn't had air conditioning, it's really difficult. And if you have asthma or you have newborns or seniors with you, it's very challenging.
I was intrigued by the story of your aunt. There was some work done in Parkdale, I want to say 10 years ago, where we looked at that kind of problem. And for someone like your aunt, there's the family to rely on. But one of the things we discovered is there are an awful lot of people who don't have that social network. I tried and unfortunately failed to get the city to look into a vulnerable persons database so that we actually knew where there were seniors, people with heart conditions. Is that a direction T would support us going?
Absolutely, and I think there's other groups on the ground who are carrying this work right now. We rely on a lot of community groups like Crew or faith communities to do this work, right? So if you have these informal networks doing this work during emergency planning, I think the city needs to support that work, and having a database like that means that groups on the ground as well as the city can play an active role, especially in emergency preparedness.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. And any other further questions? Nope, seeing none. Ducey, thank you so much. That's great. And now just 2 questions of staff. No, seeing none, just to speak. No, Councillor Doucette, and then Councillor Perks.
Thank you very much. Thank you for coming out today. You touched on some very important points, and I just want to follow up on Councillor Perks' concern. For the last 6 years, that's one of my big topics, is trying to get a vulnerable list of residents, even within my ward. We've worked very hard with our faith groups. We know which of them have a vulnerable list. We work with all our multi-residential units to find out if their board of management or their landlords have a list. And it's actually quite sad to see how many don't. So I am working with Crew, I'm working with Green 13, and I have a new group, I don't think they've named themselves yet, in my ward, who are coming together to make sure that the vulnerable list we have, we match to someone who can check in on them. The one thing I didn't hear about today was the trees. This summer has been really deadly for trees. I know I see forestry back there. They know what I'm going to say. We have so many beautiful trees in our city. Our BIAs, our Residents Association, our residents are very good at asking for trees. But this summer, a lot of the trees along our sidewalks suffered. They died. Or if they didn't die, they went into poor health. So I think we also, through the city, need, if the city can't get out there and water these trees, we need to get our community out there supporting our trees. Again, Leaf and Green 13 took upon themselves to look after all the trees within the Dundas West BIA area. We trundled rain barrels, I'm coming back to rain barrels again. We trundled a rain barrel on a cart down Dundas with watering cans and watered those trees by hand. The group, or the volunteers, then managed to get some of the businesses on Dundas to provide water. We were getting the water from Vine Park wading pool, trundling it down to Dundas, and keeping these trees alive. That's what these volunteers did, which was amazing. The Bloor West BIA put out a call to their businesses and said, if you have a tree out front, 3 buckets of water a week is what you need. If it's hotter, even add more. So we need to look at those as well, because the trees aren't just beautiful. They help keep our homes cooler, our cooling centers cooler, the green space. If we want green space, gosh, sit under a tree or sit in the middle of a playing field. You'll tell the difference really quickly. So I think that in these extreme heat, hot summers, yes, vulnerable people are number one, but I think trees should be up there as well, because we've got to protect those. It costs a fortune to replace them, and when you only replace them with a small tree, it takes many, many years for them to become that beautiful shade we need. So I always go back to the trees, but they help the people. So thank you.
They do. Great. Councillor Doucette, thank you. Councillor Perks?
Thank you. I acknowledge that the report in front of us does speak to more work getting done on this, and I also want to acknowledge that particularly public health has been tireless in their advocacy around doing something with extreme heat. That being said, though, we simply haven't done enough. Public health has been telling us for close to a decade that it's just a matter of luck that we haven't had an extended heat wave of the kind that we saw in Midwest Chicago a decade ago or in Central Europe a decade ago, where not hundreds, not thousands, but tens of thousands of people died as the result of extreme heat. Our physical infrastructure, the buildings, the apartment buildings that people live in, the rooming houses that low-income people who are often seniors live in, do not have any cooling available to people living in it. I mean, sure, it's terrible and it's awful and it's a failing of the city when we can't air condition our subway cars, but it's much, much worse when we can't cool your home. You don't have any options there. You can't wait for the next subway car to come by or decide you're going to take a taxi or anything like that. It's your home. And far too many Torontonians who are seniors or have an underlying medical condition also don't have that social network in place of someone who's going to check on them. Which means that if we do roll the dice badly one year and we do wind up with one of those week-long extreme heat events, we will have friends and neighbors die, and in large numbers. We're unprepared for it. I'm going to be blunt. The Office of Emergency Management has not taken it seriously enough, and we haven't made the investments as a city to carry on one of our most fundamental duties, which is to make sure that people living in Toronto aren't at risk of death because we didn't act to prepare. And so I'm going to be looking quite keenly at the work coming forward from the technical working group, and I will have my eye on whether or not there's an actual practical solution, even if it costs money, to make sure that we're carrying out one of our most fundamental duties.
Thank you. Councillor Perks, any others to speak? Yep, Councillor
Just
Layton.
very briefly, I'd like to thank the deputant as well as Public Health and our Energy and Environment Office for acknowledging the importance of bringing public health and individuals' health into the climate change debate. Until we figure out a way to personalize this issue with every individual in Canada, whether you think you care about the environment or not, whether you work on an oil rig or if you're from Alberta, or if you're from downtown Toronto, if you're from the Maritimes, people need to feel and commit to the long-term significant change that needs to happen to right this ship. And if we need to realize that our survival as a species and as individuals is at stake. We often just talk about biodiversity and the loss of biodiversity. That's not personalizing enough for people. We need to make sure they know that their mothers, their grandmothers, their children are all gonna be at risk if we don't again right this ship in this terrible storm or terrible direction that we're heading down. So I'm hopeful that by having our new medical officer of health come and give us a prognosis, a diagnosis of what can result if we don't do anything of inaction, that maybe that will give us a little bit of political support when we bring about some of the necessary changes to City Council and any other level of government.
Great, thank you, Councillor Layton. And so there's no motion before us, so I'll just move a motion to receive this for information. Okay, so all those in favor? Opposed? And that carries. Great. And so we're just on the last item, which we have deputants as well. It's PE 13.6, which is Yellow Creek Vale of Avoco Master Plan. And there's an attachment here as well, if you've, quite a large attachment actually, if you've seen that in your package, and also a number of emails that have been sent to support the master plan as well. So what we'll do is go right over to deputants. Speakers today. So the first one we have is John Bossens. He's a member of the board with the Summerhill Residents Association. Hi, Mr. Bossens, how are you?
Good morning, thank you.
Great. Okay, so if you have not been here to this committee before, you have 5 minutes to speak, and then...
Actually, the second deputant is
great.
Rob Spindler from Moore Park.
Okay.
We'd like to combine our deputations if we may.
Wonderful. So do you want 5 minutes or 10?
10, please.
Great. Okay, so Mr. Bossens and Rob Spindler will be doing theirs together for 10 minutes. So I'm just going to reset your clock.
And he's going to reset his computer.
No worries.
Okay. Oh, here we are. So, we're here today to support Councillor Wong Tam and Councillor Matlow's motion that they have asked you to move. What we want to do today is not only ask you for your support, but also emphasize the urgency of doing something in this project. This is, if you like, a case study in one of the implications of global warming. Which is the increasing number of extreme weather events, storm surges, and so forth. The Yellow Creek Vale of Avoca Ravine is a relatively narrow ravine with steep banks, and what's happening is that the flow of water is eroding that, it's eroding the banks, and the storm surges are simply eroding away the banks, and as you will see. Oh. Okay. I'm going to ask Rob to start off.
Yeah, actually, I'll, just to sort of set the stage here a bit, I'm not sure who knows, who's familiar with Yellow Creek Ravine, but it's steps from Yonge Street, runs from the south of Mount Pleasant Cemetery to Mount Pleasant Road. The interesting part about it is that the creek actually starts somewhere up in Downsview. It's buried all the way down to Mount Pleasant. It's the storm sewer for that whole region all the way down. So what happens in Yellow Creek, the original design for it was for a flow without all the storm sewers. Storm surges now rip away, as John was saying, rip away at the banks of the creek. The picture, the image you have up there is the aftermath of a fairly minor storm in August. You can see in this image, the normal flow of the creek is on the left side. That's after when it was clear enough to get down after the thunderstorm to take a look. On the right, you can see the volume of water that surges through there every time there's a storm. Here's, you want to jump in?
Yeah, if I may just jump in back on this for a second. That's, as you can see, that's 10 millimeters an hour. Back in 2013, when we had that major storm, that was clocked at about 137 millimeters over a space of 90 minutes. That actually was slightly larger than the downpour in Hurricane Hazel. Hurricane Hazel was presumably a 100-year storm. But actually, if you look back at the record, that second 100-year storm that we had in 2013 was actually only slightly larger than another 100-year storm that we had in 2005. The frequency, and the Toronto Environment Office did a report on this back in 2012, indicating, first of all, that in summer rainfall is increasing, as those weather events suggest. It's estimated another increasing by 50 to 80% in the rainfall in July and August in 2040 compared to what it is right now. That's a substantial increase. And not only that, but that rainfall will come primarily in extreme weather events. This is why we are so concerned about the urgency of dealing with this problem now.
Okay, let's flip forward. The image you've got there on the screen shows some of the failures in the creek banks. Those are gabion walls, those steel wire baskets. Part of the problem you have here with that work that was done in the 90s, because this is a storm sewer, we get winter runoff. We talk about summer storm, thunderstorms. We get winter runoff, salt content, road salt, rots out the gabion, the steel in the gabion walls. The rocks, the water washes the rocks out from underneath, and the gabions start to collapse and fill in the creek and create increasing anomalies. So you have the attempts to shore up the banks now actually accelerating the erosion of the slopes above. Here's a good example of it combines, this is a great image because it combines the creek bank, the slope, the trail above, and you can see how urban an environment is. That's an apartment building just above up there near Rose Hill Reservoir. The granite blocks below at the bottom of the image have failed. That means the slope above fails. The trees, you can see the trees coming down. You can see that it's not many more feet before the trail is going to fall down into the creek bed. Now, we talk about the urgency. How many more storms before that section below Rose Hill Reservoir before that slides right down into the creek? And is that going to happen when somebody's walking along the trail? Because it doesn't necessarily happen, those failures don't necessarily happen right during the storm. They can happen in the hours following a storm. Here's another good example of the failed past attempts. This is quite an ancient set of, they actually paved the bottom of the creek with concrete and stone to act as a foundation for the granite blocks above. That's an old technique that's totally failed. What's happening now in a storm surge is the water goes around behind those granite blocks and chews out the bank above. And you can see that tree is about to come down. Here's a great image of the trail at risk. This is a lower section. You can see someone who's walking along just having gone by. That actually, I was down there this morning. That trail is now about a foot narrower than what it was a few months ago. Again, an image that shows how close to the trail, that's the paved section where that person is standing, the paved section below Rose Hill Reservoir. You can see how close the slope is getting to that trail. This is a favorite. Actually, I'm going to skip to the southern bridge. You don't have it there, do you, John? Yeah. There. There are lots of examples in this presentation, but this has been like this for a great many years now, maybe getting close to 10 years. The wall in the middle used to be the bank of the path. If you look to the right of that wall that projects up to that little bridge, that used to be the path. It just does not exist anymore. It was completely washed out. You can see the little wooden bridge, the right-hand side of it. That was where you used to enter. You'd walk down the path and go across that little bridge. That's about a 6-foot drop down into what was a path. That was a path that connected up to the lower section of the ravine system. I'll make a special point about this again in a little while. This is the Heath Crescent ravine entrance. You'll see the danger steps closed, do not use sign. There was a storm in April, May 2013, 2 storms. The trees fell, took out a section of the stairs. That's resulted in the closure of this access point. It's been like that since 2013. I'll skip forward. This is a similar situation, Mathersfield Drive access. A tree came down, damaged the stairs. The response to dealing with the issue was to actually remove the broken steps to try and make the access impassable. Obviously, people continue to use it. I think before I get to the very end, Councillor Wong Tam has brought forward a motion to do a feasibility report. What we're asking is for you to push for a lot more than just a feasibility report. We actually want you to push for a comprehensive remediation plan. It's going to take a lot of money. It's going to take a lot of time. It's probably going to take a decade, but it has to get done because this ravine is going to completely fail. In the meantime, we think it's absolutely vital that you spend the money to remediate the Heath Crescent stairs and the Mathersfield stairs, that those need to be replaced, because otherwise the whole thing, use, awareness, support, everything collapses. Those are those two sets of stairs have to be a priority in the short term, in the next year or so. John?
Yeah, just on this particular slide, this is, if you like, the chart at the top is a very optimistic assessment of the time it will take to actually achieve repairs. At best, we're talking about 3 years away. By the time the geomorphic study gets completed, request for quotations, contracting, et cetera, gets resolved and construction starts. It's really imperative, as Rob said, that we take those aspects of the work that can be done faster and get those accomplished. The fact that stairs are repaired by simply removing the wooden steps is just an indication of the lack of funding for repairs and maintenance, which is crippling our...
John, we're just going to ask you if you could wrap up. We're just over the 11 and a half minutes, so...
Okay, yeah, so let me leave it at that with an appeal to you to support Councillor Wong Tam and Councillor Matlow's motion, and to please help us in getting the budget money that's required to achieve this quickly. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much. And so we have questions. We may have questions of you anyway. So Councillor Doucette.
Thank you very much. You just hit the nail on the head. Budget. I'm seeing pictures very similar to my ward, High Park, the ravines. Will your group come and help us at budget time and help us explain to administration that these stairs and these bridges, which are crumbling and have been temporarily put out of service for safety reasons, will you come forward and help us explain to this administration that these don't get fixed on their own, that we need good capital funding to go into all of our parks and our ravines, because the more we see of this, the more expensive it is to fix them. So would you be there helping your councillors and us?
Absolutely. No, we would appreciate your help in telling us how we can help you get more money, not just for this parks issue, but for parks in general.
Parks and ravinas in general, yeah.
Councillor Doucette, did you see the petition? We sent along a copy of the petition that's circulating to remediate the creek. We were at, when I sent it, we were at 750 signatures. All of those petitioners will support you in going at budget time, and we'll keep that support alive.
So I'm seeing, letters here from everyone, and I'm just saying that we, around this table, including your councillor, who may not be on this committee, but is fighting at budget time for us to get the funds with. That's what we need, the budget. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Any other councillors asking questions? No. Thank you so much for today.
Thank you.
Yeah, and we just have one more resident, Mrs. Joan York, Deer Park Residents Group. Hi, Ms. York, thank you so much for coming, and you have 5 minutes. And
This is very brief.
great, okay, no problem, either way.
Madam Chairman and the Parks and Environment Committee, as you say, my name is Joan York. I'm representing the Deer Park Residents Group. My husband and I, we moved into the area 4 years ago. I have gradually got to know some of the concerns of local residents, and I became aware of the concern and the effort by other groups abutting Yellow Creek and David Balfour Park. For many years, our family have walked, cross-country skied in many parks and ravines around Toronto and the environs. I continue to walk and explore them. When we moved into the apartment in the area 4 years ago, I looked forward to walking in the ravine, which is just opposite our apartment, I may say. However, I do not do so as much as I would like, because it is a sad and dispiriting experience to see it in such a neglected state. I have recently become aware of the huge amount of effort other residents' associations have made to study and document the neglect, and attended the meeting with Councillor Wong Tam and Josh Matlow in June. As a representative of the Deer Park Residents Group, I am in full support of the initiative taken thus far to raise awareness and urge the committee to take note of the recommendations about a concerted plan to revitalise Yellow Creek and David Balfour Park. Respectfully submitted, Joan York.
Thank you.
Very
There-
brief.
There may be questions. Do we have any? No, we don't. Okay, thank you so much for coming today. And so that wraps up the speakers list. And so now we're going to go to questions of staff. Councillor Ajamari.
Thank you. From what I've understood today, there are 2 sets of asks and needs. Excuse me. One is immediate, and it deals with health and safety concerns, and that is the repair of the steps.
That's okay.
Can that be carried out right away? And can that be put in a different column than seeking approval for the master plan?
Through the chair, we'll look at it. The issue is that the stairs lead to a path that's, as you saw in the photos, washed out at the bottom and will continue to be washed out as storms occur. And so what's been alluded to is that there's a geomorphic study that will address this. It's a study that Toronto Water will be undertaking in 2017. We'll be looking at the volumes of water and how to deal with those kind of volumes of water. And then together with them, we'll put together a plan for how to rebuild the path system through there and then the access points as well. But in the meantime, yes, we will look at those stairs.
And what will be the involvement of the TRCA?
TRCA works very, very closely with us and Toronto Water whenever we're undertaking any kind of study like this.
Okay, given the fact that we can't rely on the past assumptions of the nature of storms, in fact, one of the speakers said we have 100-year storms every, who knows? We can have them every 2 years now. So that will be, I assume, taken into account.
Well, I can't really speak to it. It's a water engineering issue that our experts in Toronto Water together with TRCA would address.
Thank you.
Further questions, staff? Councillor Doucette.
Obviously, we have a ravine strategic plan in place. And am I correct in thinking that it's not just parks funding and TRCA, we can actually get Toronto Water, to help us with some of the funding when it comes to the embankments, with this stormwater. Am I correct in that?
The ravine strategy, when it's finished, its intent is to bring more of a long-term outlook at how we can coordinate all the kinds of works that are occurring in ravines. So anytime there's major works that are undertaken, say, related to sewers and stormwater and so on in ravine systems, that has impact on the longevity of bridges and pathways and our ability to use even the floodplains for active programming and so on. So yes, the intent of bringing the strategy forward together with the other divisions that we're working on is to do precisely that, to coordinate all our efforts for a best possible end result.
Is there anything you've seen in this presentation today where we can, I'm going after water today, get funding from water to help with immediate emergency work to stop these, the riverbanks from collapsing, which will also affect parks infrastructure like our bridges and things?
I don't think so. Through the chair, I'm not sure. I mean, we would have to have that kind of a walkthrough with Toronto Water. The other thing that's happening here immediately adjacent to this ravine is the refurbishment of the Rose Hill Reservoir. So another major project just happening right at the top of slope here. And then there's a playground in between and pathway access points and so on. So there's major works happening here in the next few years.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you. And questions of staff? Nope. Seeing none then to speak. I know Councillor Wong Tam's here. So Councillor Wong Tam.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, and I want to thank the residents for taking time from their day to join us today, and also for their ongoing advocacy. I think that we've seen some phenomenal leadership from the Summerhill Residents Association, the Moore Park Residents Association, as well as the Deer Park Resident Group. The slides that were shown today only tells a small picture of what's actually happening in the Vale of Voca, in Yellow Creek, in the Mud Creek area, which of course feeds into the much larger ravine system that we have that's embedded in the northern mid-portion part of our city. And what we're seeing is a system failure. Now, it could be largely through wear and tear, and it may be through just in terms of design and the fact that engineering practices have changed, but what it doesn't necessarily tell us is that what it doesn't necessarily tell us is the impact as it moves through the incremental shifts as the soil continues to be eroded. The residents have lost access through 2 stairways, and I would say that technically, although we have barriered those access points, they are still using them because they've been using it for a very long time. But they're now using it under very unsafe conditions. I'm a fairly able-bodied person, and I actually was not able to descend down those stairs just because I thought I'm not a mountain goat. I better not continue to proceed. However, the residents are. And so they're taking a chance when they access those ravines, of course, but it's also been 3 years since those stairs were washed out, and I know that the staff are working hard to try to make sure that they can rehabilitate those stairs, but the amount of engineering work that is being uncovered is actually quite alarming. So what we've actually now realized and learned is that there's destabilized soil conditions on top of the ravines where the houses are also built. Can you imagine the residents' alarm when we held that community meeting to inform them about the preliminary research that was done to understand how to restabilize and rebuild the stairwell, to then tell them that, by the way, we want to talk to you about the soil conditions that your houses are built on. This is going to be an ongoing and unfortunate conversation that we are going to have, and it's going to become more expensive, more complicated from an engineering perspective if we actually don't put together a master plan on how to deal with the multiple sections that intersect. And I recognize that this is simply one ravine and one creek and river system out of many, many more across our city. I think that there could probably be master plans developed throughout. However, this is the one that's before you. The ravine strategy that the staff are undertaking is a very good initiative. It's actually the right direction for us to go in, but the conditions at the Vale of Avoca, Yellow Creek are so pressing that it needs attention today. The residents have stated that they're willing to, they've actually come forward and said that, that money will have to be found. They recognize it's a multi-year process of design and consultation, and we will have to secure those funds. But between Councillor Matlow and myself, we're very committed to making sure that the project gets done. So I want to confirm to the committee members today, through you, Madam Chair, is that our community is ready to step up and be a steward and a leadership in our local neighborhoods, and we are also prepared to help with some of the fundraising that we will need ultimately, once we have a better understanding of what it is that the scope of work requires. And we're going to ask that it actually is going to be coordinated, because my experience and the experience of the residents now is that Toronto Water does one thing, the TRCA will step in when they need to, parks will step in when they need to, and so forth and so forth, whether it's transportation with their trail systems and biking. And it's been very frustrating to thread it all together. If we can have greater collaboration, I think that we could create a template and a model to build a better way for us to move through this project and many other projects that we're going to have to adopt through. And at the core of it is about providing access and public safety, and ensuring that in terms of the body of work that we have to do. And those things are not negotiable. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Wong-Tam. We'll move over to Inside Committee and Councillor Perks.
Thank you, Madam Chair. First, John, Rob, Joan, thank you so much for the work you've done on this and for bringing this to our attention and working so hard on it. Obviously, a lot of thought and work went into that. I think it's important when looking at an issue like this to remember the context. And I'm going to speak to two pieces of context. One piece is, as has received a lot of attention over the last couple of months and weeks, the downtown is very parks deficient, and we're moving more and more and more people in. Surely, to goodness, the smart thing to do is to begin by making sure we're not losing any publicly accessible green space and recreation space. Surely the efficient thing to do is to spend the necessary dollars to keep what we have, even before we start talking about spending hundreds of millions of dollars to get more. And frankly, I'm shocked that the same administration that can be announcing potentially billion-dollar parks has not found the money to make sure that we protect what we've got. And I'm going to ask Councillor Doucette to put up something just as a little refresher. You'll recall last year during the budget process, this committee asked staff, what do we need to do to meet the service standards we've already got in place? And we came up with this list that's on the screen right now. I've circled 3 numbers there. Those numbers are amounts of money that we, this committee, asked for that all pertain to protecting ravines. And if you'll recall, the chair of this committee, the mayor, and a majority of council voted it all down. They voted it all down. So we're in this circumstance where we have a lot of flash but no cash when we talk about parks in the downtown and ravines generally throughout the city. I'm going to ask all of you to remember the very good work these people have done when we come to the budget debate this year. We have to invest in what we've got. Efficiency doesn't mean simply telling a department to cut its budget. Efficiency often means saying you have to spend a little bit of money right now so you don't lose a resource permanently. That's efficient use of public dollars. So I'm going to be watching for this as we come into the budget debate in the fall and the winter, and remembering your story as an example of why we can't underspend in our Parks Department, because it's inefficient to underspend.
And Councillor Doucette.
Thank you very much. As you heard through some of my questions, and as the councillor said, this is one of our ravines. Again, in my ward is Hyde Park. We have a lot of ravines going through there. We have a bridge which has been out of service for 2-3 years, and it's still being used by residents because that's how they walk their dogs and get across the stream. I also appreciate Councillor Perks bringing us this reminder I know this committee is looking for the funds we need to not necessarily enhance our parks, which we'd love to do, but just to maintain our parks. And as I said before, if you don't fix something now, like if we'd fixed those stairs when they first had an issue, we wouldn't be looking at even more money to fix them now. A lot of our parks have stairways which have had to be cornered off because they're unsafe. I had another stairwell going down a different section of my ward where I was told it would cost $400,000 to fix them. Eventually, they had to get fixed because of emergency, but it took many, many years for parks to be able to put that into their capital budgets because they're doing their 5-year plan. A lot of times we can't wait those 5 years to fix this infrastructure. So you've got my full support to get your infrastructure fixed, but we have many, many ravines, many, many parks which need general maintenance. And because, as long as I've been here, we've been doing budget cuts, freezes. How many years have I been here? 6 years. We've never given our Parks Department the extra money they need to just maintain what we have right now. We heard from one of our other deputants on another topic today that our green space and our parks are actually some of our cooling centers. Gosh, you go down into a ravine on a really hot day, and you're almost laughing at the people still on the top because you're not feeling that heat. I use my parks to relax. You know, when I've had a wonderful week at council, I go into my parks. They're part of the thing which makes our city healthy. All of us, our dogs, our people, everyone. So I truly believe that I agree. This year we will try again to get this administration to realize that it's wonderful to add new parks, which again, I do support. Gosh, doesn't this sound like streetcars, TTC? Sorry. We've got to put the money into what we've got now to bring it up to a safe standard, because there's nothing worse than having part of our parks inaccessible because we can't use them because it's not safe. It's absolutely ridiculous. So thank you very much to the deputants for coming out today.
Thanks. And Councillor Audrey-Murray.
Oh, just a brief word on something that you can consider completely different, and that is the origins of the waterways. One of the deputants referred to the fact that Yellow Creek watershed is in Downsview, and it's true. Silver Creek, White Creek, they've all been paved over. When Keel Street was created, it just paved over our waterways, which leads to increased environmental degradation. And our river systems in this city have been so debilitated that it's costing us a fortune and a lot of political capital that sometimes isn't there to rehabilitate what's been lost over the ages. Just wanted to add that.
Great, thank you. And anyone else to speak? Nope, seeing none. So I'll just say that I'll move the recommendation on behalf of Councillor Wong-Tam and Councillor Matlow. And also I'd like to say that now that we are actually moving through the ravine strategy and we actually have that, whereas prior to that, during the budget rounds, we did not have that before us. And also, we don't have a report back as of yet, and this is what this will be doing, that we'll have a report back from Water and TRC on exactly what the costing and what the measures that need to be taken for this. So we'll actually have reports in front of us to vote on, which is different than what Councillor Perks was saying prior to this. I mean, just throwing out numbers and not knowing exactly what we're dealing with, it's really hard to vote on that. So having that before us will actually be beneficial, and I think that any intelligent person would be wanting that report before them. So thanks again for coming out today. And again, I'll be moving this recommendation. Hopefully the committee will support that. Thank you. Councillor Cressy.
Just a few final words, I guess. First of all, thank you for coming. I think it's worth noting for your benefit that regardless of a forthcoming ravine strategy, this council has council-endorsed service standards for the upkeep of our ravines. That is what council voted on last year. That is what the chair of this committee voted against. Not a new report, not new figures, but existing service standards to maintain your ravines that you voted against. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All in favor? Opposed? And that carries.